Alan Lewis Raw Conversation, where every voice has a story.
Welcome to episode 23 of the Alan Lewis Raw Conversation. Today we're speaking to Special Forces and Commando soldier Peter Rudland, who was in a Black Hawk accident in 2010, where 4 Special Forces soldiers lost their lives. Peter Rudland, thank you for joining us today.
To all who have served and continue to serve in Australia and around the world, thank you for your courage and your sacrifice, lest we forget. We will now be playing the last post out of respect for all the people who have served and continue to serve in the Australian Defence Force and militaries around the world. During this podcast, Peter and Alan discuss a wide range of topics around the Australian Defence Force. Some of these topics may be distressing to people, so viewer/listener discretion is advised.
And welcome. Well, today I'm going to carry on a bit of a story that the podcast has been doing for a while, and I'll go back to 9/11, and I think we all at that generation who were alive can remember where we were. And I can remember I was watching a television show, then I crossed over to the news and started watching 9/11. And coming down the track, starting this podcast, I never thought I'd have a chance to talk to someone who was actually in the buildings, who was Mike Hinckley. I talked to him and he escaped the building with his assisted dog. And then I was lucky to talk to Simon, who created the documentary Bravery and Betrayal. And then after that, I was lucky to talk to Horse, who was in the Special Forces, who helped bring in the dogs into the Special Forces. And again, today I'm very lucky to talk to someone who has served for this country and I believe still serving for this country. Peter, how are you?
I'm good, mate. Yourself?
Thanks for joining us, mate. We've been talking over the last few weeks of what we wanted to talk about today, and we'll talk about your story and how you got to where you are as we go on. But how are you today? How are you feeling? And how is life at this stage for you?
Life is pretty good and the day is pretty good as well. I got the kids up, got them off to school. It's a beautiful sunny day here at the Northern Rivers, so everything is good.
Okay, mate, we're talking about all different points we want to talk about, and I think one of the main areas is that all service people use is the RSL. Can you tell us how long you've been part of the RSL, what it means to you, and the direction the RSL is going in at this moment?
Well, that's a fairly big question. I suppose the place to start was, as a child, I was a legacy ward. So legacy were very heavily involved in my life as a young child. My mum was a war widow. So legacy and the RSL did a lot to support my mum and help out. So right from an early age, I was very aware of the RSL and the great things that they do. During my service, I didn't have a lot of interaction with RSL. I had always looked at it as somewhere to go after, if it was applicable to me at the time. But then after my service, my friend Phil Winter, who's a brigadier, he's the ADF Sport. He became the CEO of RSL Australia, and he asked me to get involved. So I had a bit of a look at it, see if I was a good fit for RSL, and I sort of decided that I could be utilised in the space and do some good. So I accepted the position RSL Ambassador National, and I haven't looked back. Absolutely loved it. It's been a great experience.
As you said, one of your mates kind of brought you to the RSL. If you had a young soldier now that you were trying to explain what the RSL has done for you since you've been part of it, and then they're not using the RSL or they don't fully understand it yet, what would you sit down and talk to them about what the RSL can help them with?
Another big question. I suppose if I explain how I got into or going to the RSL, even
Yep.
before Phil had chatted to me. So when I was in rehab from my injuries from Afghanistan, I was doing stuff on the farm in WA. I went down to the local landscaping shop, and the guy there, we got talking. He was a Vietnam veteran. I told him, that I was serving, and he said, "Why don't you come down the RSL?" And I thought, well, you know what? It's probably not my space. Most of the guys that he was talking about were much older. It was all Vietnam issue guys or era guys. And I thought, I don't really want to just sit around and drink, because I'm not much of a drinker, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't really do that. So anyway, he had asked me on several occasions, and I thought, well, I'll go down just to be nice. Go down, meet the guys, and sort of see where it goes. But I went down, and there was a lot of young guys. There was it was very much, because it was country Western Australia, very much a traditional RSL. It was just mainly veterans in there and nobody else. There's no gaming side of it or any of that. It's just a bunch of guys having a bit of a chat and helping each other out on the farms. And it was a good fit for me. So when Phil had then asked me at that higher level to be involved, I was more than happy to. So I suppose to answer your question properly, I found something in the RSL that was great for all types of service. It doesn't matter if you're infantry, your transport, your ordnance, Army, Air Force, Navy. There was somebody at the RSL that was like-minded, and it's a great start point, especially if you're going to relocate to an area for discharge, to meet people and find out about the area, to find out about to make friends when you go to areas. So the RSL provides a lot in just the conversation, for one. But the other, the RSL provides so much across the platform. There's job opportunities. There's, in some states, there's rent assistance. There's so many different projects that are going across the RSL Australia-wide. Anything you can think of, there's the RSL are doing something. So I would always say to anybody, go down to the RSL, have the chat. If you don't get the ear that you want to talk to, find another ear, because there's so many people in there with so much to say and so much to help with.
I think what you said there, and we'll talk about mental health as we go, and I think as well for soldiers, it's it's any kind of soldiers or anything who are going to the RSL. I think it's great because maybe other soldiers who can tell that there's something not right, or this person needs a little bit of help or backing, and just pick up that person's not right at that stage. And I think it's really important, that mateship, and to get someone just backing them and knowing someone can understand where they came from and what they're going through.
Mate, there's definitely that aspect of it. But I'm always very careful of the broken soldier narrative.
Yeah.
There's only a small amount of soldiers that are broken. Most of us have absolutely loved our service, have benefited from service, are very productive from our service. So going to the RSL is also about, networking. You can find, again, like-minded people. You can find, you can find jobs. A lot of civilian companies are reaching out to the RSLs looking for soldiers for jobs. Plus, just having that conversation with other people, especially in rural communities, people are looking for people to work on the farm, and soldiers bring great skills to that. So there's a lot more dimensions. I always want to get away from this broken soldier narrative. Yeah, there is a few broken soldiers, but there's not, not everybody's broken.
No, I think that's good. But staying on the RSL, how's the governments look after the RSLs now with funding? Do they fund them? Do you think the government needs to help the RSLs with more funding and areas like that to help grow the RSL and help grow the members?
I would hate to see the onus put upon defence to fund, the government to fund everything.
Yeah.
But, I think that, our membership, we have, 70 or 100 and something thousand, I think. Sorry, I might be off on my numbers. But our membership, helps produce that funding. There's certainly plenty of grants that the RSL apply for. There's plenty of grants that the RSL apply for that assist in funding. But there's no reason that we can't develop our own stuff within, the various, places that RSLs are situated around Australia. So the various clubs. We have to be better than that. We have to be smarter than that. We can't depend on government. As we've just seen, in the budget, they are pretty bloody quick to take money off us whenever it suits them. Yeah. So we need to have our own funding. We need to have our own ability to make sure we can look after ourselves and not have to worry about government.
It's great hearing you. That's, like you said, so many people are ready to take and not hand back out. So to hear that from a soldier and someone who's been through it, it's just great, because so many people just want to hand out and never wish to hand back. Going to legacy a little bit, as I said, my knowledge of these areas is small, and a lot of the people who are going to listen to this podcast probably are. Can you explain legacy a little bit, how it was created, how it helped you as a child, and how it helped families?
So I suppose the long story made short, two diggers in the trenches, made a deal to each other. If I get knocked, I'll look after your family. And that's pretty much exactly what happened. Yeah. Comes back to Australia, starts looking after the family, and then that grows because like-minded people see the issue, especially in bigger wars, so World War II, with mass casualties. A lot of families weren't looked after, so like-minded people got together to look after them. Hence why the RSL started in the first place as well. Again, to look after, give veterans somewhere to go to be able to talk, and give, the families an opportunity to do the same. Wives to talk to wives, children to talk to children. It's defence people looking after each other. So Legacy, is one of the greatest organisations that's ever been made. Putting veterans in the same place with the same cause to look after each other, to help each other's family, is fantastic. And without Legacy and the RSL, I certainly wouldn't be the man I am today. I would not have, grown in the same direction. I probably would not have gone into defence. I'd be, a little fat civvy, in WA whinging about something. It created opportunity, and it created a mentor system for me and my cohort growing up. SAS guys or members from SAS used to run a camp once a year for us, and a lot of people used to call it the old recruiting drive. But what it was, it put people with high degree of drive, great people who loved the job around us kids. And it made us want to be there. We wanted to emulate them. From the time I was, 14 years old, all I wanted to do was join the army. Oh, I wanted to join the army from the day I was born. But from around 14, I wanted to join the army, go into infantry, go into SASR, and be half the man that these people who were in front of me. So it created great opportunity, and it's a great organisation.
And your kind of thought of the joining the military, and that your grandfather was in the military, is that true?
Yes.
Yeah.
So mine's a little bit more complicated. I suppose I was given up at birth. So I was adopted by my grandparents, and my paternal grandfather, he had died through war causes. So he was World War II. So technically my granddad, but I look at him as like my dad.
Yeah. And with legacy, just a little bit explaining if you can, what kind of things did they put on camps and different events like this for families and children? Was it go away camps, spend time together, that kind of events, was it?
So when I was Legacy Ward, there was a bit of everything there. So you had a camp where my mum and myself, my brother would go to.
Yeah.
So we would go down to Bustleton, and as a family, we could, spend time on the beach and go and do stuff and be with other families that were similar. So that was one side, which was great for my mum. It was something that she really needed. Then you also had the camps where I went away for a week. So one camp in May of each year, we used to go to Rottnest Island and stay at Kingston Barracks. So we would stay there for the week and just go out and do cool stuff. At the end of the year, we would have the Bustleton camp, which was run by SASR. So it was a coalition there between SASR and Legacy, the Junior Legacy Committee in WA, and they would put on that camp, which in later years I went to run it from the SAS side of things once I was in the regiment, and I also did it as a legatee as well. So I got to do both sides of that on the Junior Legacy Committee, and I sat on that for a couple of years. But also every other month we would have stuff like sailing days over to Karnak Island, and we did a little yachting day around the rivers, and things like that. So we would have activities which were pretty much monthly. WA is absolutely outstanding when it comes to the legacy space and putting all of us wards together and creating activities that were meaningful. My legacy friends were pretty much my greatest friends of my life, and they still are to this day. I'm still in contact with them in various shapes and forms, and we regularly catch up. And I'm 54 years old now, and I did that as a kid.
And with working with legacy now, it must be great for the other parts of the family, for you having understand that you grew up through legacy, you have served for this country, that when you're, say, if you are going to camps or dealing with people now, they have an understanding that you understand how it feels, how it is to serve for your country, how it is to kind of lose friends, as well family, that you lost your grandfather. Then someone has myself, if I was saying I was in there, I could probably do something or help, but I don't have that same knowledge and understanding of that loss and the generations of families who have been part of it.
In that sense, it's been great. I've been in the defence space either as a legacy ward, involved in RSL, 28 years of service, then still that continuation of involvement, working on the Royal Commission, and being involved in the Royal Memorial. So pretty much every day of 54 years, I've had something to do with the defence space. So that continuity went leading into, doing my counselling diplomas and setting up the company, helping guys with post-traumatic stress. It gave me, an understanding of what was available to the families, what was available to them, a really holistic approach in how to facilitate that. And I think that's, helped obviously with, RSL Ambassador, being on the committee for the Royal Commission. And it's continually evolved my understanding of the space and how I can better help and better link people. I think initially all I wanted to do was, get out there and do everything myself. And then I realized, there's a much smarter game here to be played. Use the assets, use the knowledge you have, connect people to the right people, and that's how you get the best fit.
Is just going a little bit back to your day when you were a child and going to the camps. Can you remember anyone who had a big influence on you in them days, or that there were probably a lot, but someone you just always go back to and say they were, that person just incredibly changed a direction of my life or what I was thinking about around that time? Because around the 13, 14 part of a life, child, you're looking for peers and you're looking for direction.
So there's a couple there, and I'll briefly touch on. The first one was my very first legatee, was a guy called Athol Douglas, World War II veteran. Athol was telling me that when he joined the army, he couldn't read or write. He educated himself whilst he was in the system, and then when he came back to Australia, pushed on with further education, ended up working for the West Australian Museum. Absolutely unbelievable guy. He was always there. His ear was always open, and the advice that he gave was always fantastic. He was just amazing for my mother and amazing for me. Another guy called John Burridge, he's in Perth. He was the president of Perth Legacy. He was like a mentor and still is. I love the man like he is my father. He has always given me great advice. He's been exceptional my whole life. He's always been there, so I absolutely love him. There was another dude called Ian Rasmussen that I met, and Ian was a Vietnam veteran, SAS. He was the CSM of one of the or SSM to one of the squadrons, way back in the day. And Ian helped me out with my SAS selection stuff. He took me away, did NAVEX stuff, and spoke to me. Mentored me. He was fantastic, and I owe legacy those three relationships that really have changed and defined my life through their education and guidance over the years.
Yeah, and that having that, having them people you can look up to for a child at any age, but especially at that life-changing pit where you can just choose your peers and who you're going with is so important, isn't it?
Bloody oath. Bloody oath.
Okay, that's legacy, but a little bit more with legacy now. If, like I said, I want to get through a certain amount of things, but if someone wants to help legacy out now, or the best way people outside of legacy can help legacy out, what's the best way to support it and help people in there now?
Well, legacy has evolved a little bit over the years. Once upon a time, you had to be a returned veteran,
Yes.
but now you just have to be a person who's interested in helping. So if there's anybody out there who wants to get involved, get online, find out where your nearest legacy is, give them a call, say you're interested, go down. Now, there's plenty of different things you can do in legacy. The smaller parts, the smaller groups, say Tweed Heads and that type of stuff, they might focus on helping widows as an example. But the bigger ones, like Perth, and I always use WA as the example. They've got the Junior Legacy Committee who organise stuff for the kids. Then you've got committees that deal with the older people. So there's a lot of variety in there. So if you find the right legacy group to go to, you'll find the best fit for you. So if you first don't succeed, ask more questions and find one that does.
Excellent, and we'll make sure Jacob and us will put a lot of some links into everything we talk about so people can find that easy. Just moving on to a bit of your service. Most people who haven't served before, we don't have a full understanding. Can you just take us through the steps of when you started joined the army, the steps of becoming part of the special forces and then commandos, how it goes, just a bit of a time period of how long it took to you to get to that stage?
Okay, so as a 16-year-old, I submitted my paperwork, 16 and 9 months, submitted paperwork to join the army. I then did my testing. So that process back in those days took about 3 or 4 months. I got accepted into the army. I was given the dates of the 21st of March, 1989. I left Perth, went to my dog's barking. Can you hear him?
Yeah.
That's
all right. My seeing eye dog, he's asleep still, so it's okay.
Yorkie likes a little sporadic bark. But anyway, I went into the army in 21st of March 1989, went to Kapuka. Back in those days, you weren't allotted to corps. You had a green guide, and based on your education and your performance, you were given certain corps that you could choose from. I had always wanted infantry, so there was never going to be an issue with that. Got into infantry, went to the School of Infantry, had about 3 months there. Initially wanted to go to 1 battalion with, at the time, one of my best friends. We both sort of changed our mind and stuck our hand up for 3 battalion. I was posted to 3 battalion on the 30th of September 1989. And the only reason I remember that is my birthday. It was my 18th birthday. The whole battalion was on standout, so I went out and got drunk by myself. Lots of fun. It's like, oh, I'm old enough, going to every pub I could find in Sydney going, ask me for ID, I dare you.
Yeah.
So anyway, got to the battalion. I spent a couple of years in the battalion, and I really loved being a part of 3 Battalion. It's a unit with a great esprit de corps. Back in those days, it was the parachute battalion. And all the guys who were friends are still friends today. So it's great to see that strength of friendship that the battalion had created. I did a couple of years there. I applied for SASR. I got accepted to it, or accepted to attend the course. I actually got told I was going to go to Cambodia. And I was offered a position. There was only like 7 of us from 3RAR who was offered the position to go across. So I withdrew from SAS selection, and informed the regiment that I'd been offered this trip. They said, definitely take it, and we'll automatically panel you for the next course. So I went over, did the year or under a year in Cambodia, because it ended up being end of mission. Came home, was pretty much panelled straight on the next course without too much dramas. And then attended the course. That was in 1994. And then I was successful, or I was found suitable. So I then started my reinforcement cycle from there. So in those days, you used to do your selection course, patrol weapons course, patrol course, para course, and then post into the unit and start your reinforcement cycle. And that's exactly what took place. So I did the reinforcement cycle, did a few years in the regiment. Then when they were building 4RAR Commando, went across to 4RAR Commando, and then from there just postings internal and to and from.
Sorry, but just a little bit of so like I said, I don't fully understand it, but what's the difference between, say, the SAS and Commandos? Is there a difference? Just a small explaining of what the difference is for people.
So both the units come under Special Operations Command. SAS primary, and I mean this is really basic. Primary is long range reconnaissance surveillance, and Commandos is direct action tasks. So a larger scale direct action task. Even though there's an overlap, Commandos don't so much do. They have a reconnaissance and a surveillance form of the unit. But their rolling isn't to do that long range reconnaissance and surveillance. That's SASR. But SASR also have the targeting aspect as well, or direct action. Both sides, tag east, tag west, both perform domestic counterterrorism and have certain serials within that, and an overlap as well, so they can both assist each other. 2 fantastic units with great skill sets. Fundamentally, the skill sets are the same, right? But with those slight differences in the roles. And as I said, there are overlaps. So there's always, so the system works well, but different at the same time.
Oh, thank you for that. Like I said, people hear, special forces, commandos, and things like that, but I don't think that people have a full understanding. I think sometimes they watch a TV show or YouTube clip, and then they think they're, got the full knowledge. But just to hear it from someone correctly, I think it's just makes it so more understandable of what the difference is. Moving on, like I said, is we're gonna, talk a little bit about the accident, but me and you want to talk about so many more things you're doing now. And I think, if I'm right, I was actually checking out the date. I think it was the 21st of June 2010, and I think we're just a few days after that. Is that right? If I got that time right, line? I do. So moving on that, and of course the accident happened, and we can go back to that. So I want to move on to now, if you don't mind. I think you would have talked about that accident quite a bit, and we agreed on that. Then after your injuries and repairing, I want to know what's, after you had the injury and you came, well, not through the injury, when it was kind of came out of hospital, what was the next stages after coming out of hospital for you?
Probably, well, the stage was trying to understand where I was at. What did my future look like, and what did my immediate now look like? The injuries were numerous, and they impacted greatly on my body, so, and my mind as well, because I had the frontal lobe bleed plus the all the musculoskeletal stuff. But I was just trying to understand where I fitted into the world, and that was probably the really, really big one. I knew my job was going to be over. Even though defence were fantastic, they were really, really good. But I had to really understand where I fit in and how that looked going forward. So most of my time was committed to rehab and trying to see how good I could get the body back to, and if I could, what was viable, what was going to happen from there.
And talking about that, and that's one thing I know you're a big ambassador for, is pain and recovery. And you've been in, you know the pain and the recovery time. Looking at what pain management now is today and being part of that, can you give us a little bit of, direction of what's happening and your thoughts of pain management and, how we can make it better and understand pain? Because a little bit about me with my disease, I'm actually in a lot of pain, but, pain's in different ways. When I was looking at how they explain it, an injury, having an arm off or finger, something like that, you can see it, but pain's an unknown seen thing. So it's hard to understand. You can go into a doctor and you can say, I'm in pain, but you can't actually show it, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely. I've been lucky enough to be involved with Pain Australia now for I don't know, about 6 years. So it's been an opportunity to learn there, and the advocacy that they do provides me with a lot of knowledge. I've also been lucky enough to work on a Pain Star conference every 2 years that's run down in South Australia, where people are invited from around the world to come and lecture on that, and PhD students come and talk about what they're doing in the space. So with all of that knowledge and the understanding of my own pain and the education that I've had along the way, especially, when I first got hurt, Defence put a pain specialist in the room to talk to me about it. All of it tells me that nobody really knows anything about pain. So that's probably the first thing.
Correct.
But what I think is great is that so many people out there are trying to look at ways to fix it. Remembering, you have normal physical pains, you have neuropathic pain, and most people don't understand the difference between them. Neuropathic pain can tend, and as I find it, everybody else is different, but as a whole, neuropathic pain has more of a burning sensation and a more of a prolonged feeling. It comes from deep inside your body, and it just hurts and resonates, and there's nothing you can really do except medicate yourself to fix that. And you've got to have the right medications for that. Unfortunately, there are drugs out there that are given to people on a daily basis for neuropathic pain. That is really bad, and I'll say the word Lyrica. It's absolutely disgusting. It's shocking. It's great for people who have had a high trauma physical injury, like the hole in my leg or amputees, for that first 6 months and for that nerve regeneration and to block that out. It's great. But
very hard to come off too. Sorry, very hard.
Oh yeah, bloody oath, mate. You are dead right. Yeah. The addictive properties of it makes a lot of people fat. It stuffs with your brain. It's not a good, healthy drug to use longer than 6 months. No. So what they tend to do in Australia is a lot of doctors put people on high dose Lyrica, leave them on there for too long, and especially for women. I've said it so many times. You got women who are overweight being put on because of sore back, being put on the Lyrica, and then ending up larger and in more pain. So the actual medication they're taking is exaggerating their problem. Yeah. So there's an education issue there straight away. There are a lot of good, clean, healthy medications you can take for neuropathic pain. So discovering which pain you have and how to best treat it is the big one. And it's not an easy question. It's consultation with doctors, consultation with surgeons, and understanding your pain and the things that you can do to fix those. Like I have a small procedure, for example, that de-innervates my nerves, so I can train more on those areas to strengthen them to give me longer periods without pain. Unfortunately, I'm going to have pain in some way, shape, or form for the rest of my life. So I've had to learn those things that I can do to reduce that, strengthen the areas, and help out as much as I can, So it just becomes a process of understanding yourself, understanding your body, having a good mindset towards it, and not let the pain win. You know, at the end of the day, you've got to win, because if the pain keeps winning, it's a very negative space inside your head. And once you have a negative space, then you start sliding downhill. And the whole object is to go uphill.
I think it's correct. And you've got to find the right doctor, because I don't want to talk about me much, but I think with the doctors is some are very accepting and understanding about it, but some can shut it down straight away. So you've got to find a doctor you can trust, someone who can understand the pain you're in. Understand, like I said, is pain you can't see. So it's difficult to, to show it and discuss it. So I think finding a doctor who can really understand it and, like you said, manage it is the most important thing as well.
Definitely. What was it? Sigmund Freud said, if you don't have rapport, you don't have a client.
Exactly.
But you've got to have that rapport with all of your doctors. If you don't have that, you don't speak openly, you don't explain things properly, you don't get the opportunity to talk properly. So there must be rapport there. And if you develop that rapport, everything works out quite well, I think.
Yeah. And I think the thing about, like you said, drug changes and the difference with drugs, Lyrica and all the scripts changing is made it hard for people to be able to treat pain how it should be as well, because doctors are so closed off of what they can do, and they have to be so careful, and they're so scared of what they're giving people now, then looking at the treatment and how to look at every person who's coming in is different, and they're so worried about getting sued or what can actually happen to them as well legally.
Yeah, bloody oath. All of the above.
With the pain, with being the ambassador with the pain management, and that, what kind of role do you do, and how do you help people, and what do you do part of that?
Well, when I first started, I did a video. I was asked to take part, and it was about a 13-minute video. So it was an interview about my pain journey, and what fell out of that was being asked to be an ambassador, or a pain champion for Pain Australia. So that was a few years ago, and there was a lot that was generated out of that. I was talking to a lot of people. I was, attending functions, but that sort of backed off a bit, over the last couple of years, maybe the last 2 or so, with the change of leadership within the organisation. But I, as I said, every 2 years I do the Pain Star conference, which is funny enough. In front of me, I've got my little Pain Star conference thing, my drink holder that sits on my desk every day. But I've been doing that since its inception, and so you get that opportunity again. You're learning, you get to teach other people, you get to talk about your pain journey and how that sort of shapes your life. So it has a greater impact on that. With a lot of the talks I do around other subjects, like, for example, on the weekend, I spoke at the Bupa conference in Brisbane, and I got to talk a lot about, those effects of my pain and how I need that management between, my doctors to ensure that I'm getting the continuity of medical attention that I need for me to be able to deal with that pain aspect. So I speak a lot about that to bring that understanding to the clinicians and other people or treating agencies about what we can do to best look after people.
And I suppose it comes down to that, not talking about genders, that male thing. You don't show pain, you don't talk about it. And I think, again, that when someone like you can speak out and talk about it is very important, because you get told, oh, you can't talk about pain, that's weak. And I think more people understand they can talk about it. I think that one helps get rid of some of the pain, and then allows you to know the options and the help what's out there, and the understanding as well.
I agree, but I will pull you up on something.
Yep.
I think, back in the day that, with those stereotypes about males not talking about their pain on it, females are exactly the same.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any difference there now. Women carry the pain that they have, in many cases, those lower back pains that they get.
Yeah.
They're excruciating, and, they're going to work. They're, in some cases, coming home to cook and clean and do all that sort of stuff. And a lot of them don't complain either.
No.
They sit there and they suffer in silence.
Yeah.
hoping that they can either medicate or get an opportunity to do something about it. So gone are the days of just men hiding it. I think women hide it too. So yeah, credit
No,
across.
I totally, no, I was getting at that, but I totally agree with that because again, today women are part of everything, but they're sometimes behind the scenes as like, when whoever this sex is goes off to war, especially if it's the men going off to war, the woman, the lady, the wife's looking after everything, looking after the house, looking after the yard. They can't show pain because they're normally looking after the younger children. So that role, is just as important as any role what's getting served anywhere.
Yeah, definitely.
With the pain management, that's great. And again, we'll add any links. And as I said, I do understand a little bit about pain. Moving on to after the pain and then I want to talk about the Royal Commission a bit further down the track because I think that's one of the most important things we'll talk about today. But after you got, I wouldn't say fully recovered, you went into the Invista Games. Can you tell me a little bit about that, how you got asked to go in and your role in it?
So the way I got involved, sorry, got a bit of a dry throat.
No, it's all right.
The way I got involved is, so when I first got hurt, Army sent me over to the US with 2 other guys with injuries, and we were there for the Warrior Games, the pre-selection for the Special Operations team for the Warrior Games. So we were just looking at what they had. Whilst I was there, I got to meet the US cycling coach, and he had said to me, had I tried a recumbent bike? And I said, I never even heard of a recumbent bike. So we had the conversation. I jumped in a bike. It turned out to be an Australian-made bike from Greenspeed. I really, really enjoyed riding it. When I got back to Australia, I was looking at trying to get one. And next minute I got told, hey, Pete, you're going on the Invictus Games. So there was no selection process or anything like that, back in those days. They said, you're going on the Invictus Games. I was like, I don't even know what the Invictus Games is, man. So I got a bit of a heads up and I thought, this is awesome. I get a trip to Florida. And it was at Disney World too, just to make it better. So I went to the games. I didn't have, I competed across some sports that I didn't really know anything about. So the cycling, I didn't know about it, but the Americans lent me a bike, so I got to do the cycling, come absolutely dead last.
Yeah, I heard they gave you the best bike, eh?
Yeah, it was so far to the back, it was not funny. I did wheelchair, seated basketball and did archery and a couple of things. But what it was, at the time, it wasn't about being competitive. It was about, being around guys and girls who had been wounded, who had severe injuries. The Afghan war was still very much in the swing of things then. So it puts you in the room with like-minded people, at different stages of their recovery. Some were still struggling, some were doing well, and it got you to have a conversation that you wouldn't get at home. So for me, it was a fantastic thing. Like I was seeing guys doing great things with their injuries, and I wanted to be able to step up and improve my quality of life. So went on the games, thoroughly enjoyed it, said, I wanted to go back and win the next year. It gave me focus. I really, really trained. I got myself a trike. And I did. I got to go back on the next games, and I was lucky enough to be chosen as captain. Sorry. So there was myself and Emma Kajolka. She was still serving, and I was still serving at the time as well. And we had a team of about 34 that went to Canada that year. So that was great. I got that continuity within what I was doing. I'd done very poorly, but I'd met people who pushed me in the right direction. Then I got to, get back into a leadership mode. So, I started to get my headspace back. I was getting to do good things in Australia by having conversations with people who wanted to talk to me because I'd been an Australian captain. So everything was sort of falling into place. When the Sydney Games came up, I didn't think that I'd get in the team again because you only get a couple of bites at the cherry. But the boss, the DG, ADF Sport, sort of said, maybe rethink it, Pete, put your name down. You'd make a great mentor for the next, captains and that. So I did. And again was lucky enough to be selected in the team. So I got to do three sets of games. The Australian games were just fantastic to have it on home soil and see that the amount of media that was attached to it and the positivity to show the Australian public, what veterans who had been wounded in operations and also, those guys and girls who had been injured in the workplace, who were really struggling as well. So it put that profile on the Australian media and gave everybody the opportunity to learn about it. So it was a great thing to have the games there and to be a part of it. And then after that, I was asked to stay on staff, and I was maintaining all the equipment and liaising and having a good time. So I got to do that for another 2 sets of games for Germany and in The Hague. And then after that, I realised it was time for me to move on from the space. I'd been there, long enough. I'd achieved everything I needed to. The demographic of people were starting to change a bit, which means that you either grow yourself or move aside. And I decided that it was time for me to move aside.
Well, you enjoyed your time in it and then getting out. What's your thoughts about it now, and how do you think what direction is it going in now? What do you agree how it's going now, or your thoughts about the way it's going wrong at this stage?
Well, I think it's been a fantastic thing. I think it's really created a good space for people, especially battle cas, to get together with people with severe injuries, and compete and learn about the new you, after injury. I think it's great. I would not like to see the games go down the path of just being the mental health games, and that's not a dig against mental health people or anything like that, but I worry that the games has lost its path on what it was created for, and I think a lot of that comes down to, well, what it comes down is selection from the countries that are competing in the games. And when I say the selection, what's important is when the games are coming up, the volunteers of the people who want to participate in it has got to be a larger, diverse group. It can't be all mental health. It has to be a mixture of mental health, physical health, male, female, the whole works. We're not going to get battle casualties because we're not at war, but we certainly have veterans with injuries who are still struggling. So getting the word out there, that the Invictus Games are out there, the great things that it does for people, how it sets people up for opportunities. You just got to grab them. That's the important bit, getting that diversity, getting the word out there, that positivity, so there's no negativity across the space and people can see what it's good for. So I think it's great, but we've just got to be careful the way we evolve it from this time in.
Okay, that's great. And part of doing all that, of course, you would have always been, into the fitness and that from being, through the special forces and that. And I believe you went into some life coaching, talking, and training other military people. Can you tell me how you got into that direction and who helped you get into that?
Do you mean after I got wounded?
Is it after you like the fitness kind of training you went into helping, with mental health and fitness for people?
Yeah, no. So that's after.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all cool. So I was still in defence. So the way it sort of went down was, I was always that guy that people asked for advice. Especially in my later years.
Yep.
As a sergeant and so on. My boss had said to me, you should think about doing something where you can help people. You're that type of guy. You like it, and yeah, you see where you go with it. So anyway, I decided to do a counselling diploma. So I did a double diploma in counselling, and I really, really enjoyed that. And I approached it with the attitude of I was always going to be shaped around post-traumatic stress, depression, and those associated sort of illnesses around that. And then, so I had this, and then, I'm out there and I'm talking to people and I'm counseling people as well. And what I started to notice was there was a lacking in people's fitness. Like guys that I knew were once really fit, now turned into chubs sitting on the lounge, and their mental health battle had got the better of them and they had lost their identity. So that coupled with the success that we were seeing in the Invictus space. So the guys and girls who had physical injuries, who got into the space, were more inclined to have positivity after they left. So they continued with the sporting element of it. They got into doing triathlon, or they got into doing this. And, it was, there was a lot, it was productive. So what I decided there was that Defence paid for me to do my Cert 4 in physical education. And then I used that as a platform to do my counselling. So I would try to get people back into a physical space, but counselling from behind. So it was almost like a sneaky way of counselling. Let's go and do some training together. And you get to have that conversation. And you get to counsel somebody without them feeling like they're being counselled. So you don't get that pushback. It's just it's a counselling session between somebody doing PT. Then, in I suppose like Invictus space and other sporting spaces that I was in, again, if we're out on a ride, we're just having a conversation. And you can shape those conversations to try to bring out a productive environment during the chat. If somebody wants to have a choice, be the ear, be the platform that allows them to have the conversation, but then have the awareness to then push it back so they get something from it, not just a one-way conversation. So,
sorry, go on.
I was just going to say that's how I sort of got into it, because I really enjoyed it. And out of also the Invictus space, I met a few guys that I really connected with. A dude called Matty Brumby was one, and his desire to train, at the highest levels, dragged me up on that as well. So it all had its little place to be able to, put me in the right space, and then to be able to conduct the training both physically and mentally as we continued. So it sort of just worked well for me.
And we were talking about how important that is. That I suppose the old thing, if you don't use it, you lose it, and how important we were talking about is for anyone, first responders or military or civilian, but how that fitness and mental fitness is so important for life and to keep giving you the drive to keep going.
Definitely.
Yeah. And what to develop that for, which just with you being in the military, what's any kind of, is there programs out there now, or are you helping with any counselling programs with that? What's out there now to get our military soldiers to help them if they're retired or came back injured to, keep getting that fitness, or, get out there and do some exercise?
Oh, there's heaps. There is, it's almost infinite, to be honest.
Yeah.
There's no excuse out there now for people to say I can't find anything. For those who are gold cards from DVA, for example, you can go to your EP, your exercise physiologist, and he'll set up programs. And in most of those programs, there's a gym program attached to that. So you can go to the gym, daily if you wish to. There's also, if you've got injuries, you can go to the physio, and they're generally connected as well. So you've got that. You've got the RSL, who sets up, RSL Active, for example, as one of the many sporting endeavors that are created across RSL. You've got the ones that are just targeted from different organisations, like, going to walk Kokoda or different stuff around Australia. There is, the Invictus. There's so many programs. There's snow programs, there's summer programs. They're out there, and all you've got to do is ask. Every time I talk to a veteran, when I'm talking to my friends base and that, they're telling me about this new one. They're going to Canada on a ski program, or they're going to to walk around Victoria, or in WA, they're going to do a Cape to Cape. There are programs literally everywhere. There are 6,500 different ESOs across the space now, which I think is just absolutely ridiculous. We need to group up and work together, and that's a problem in itself, but for another day. But there are so many programs. All you need to do is look. Find one
No.
that suits you, get involved with it, and enjoy it.
That's excellent. A little bit about your life. So your fitness now and what you do through the week for your own training and mental health. What's your steps to keep yourself fit now and help your mental health weekly?
I don't know about help my mental health. I think I'm making myself crazy.
Yeah.
So the man I mentioned before, Matty Brumby, I both love him and hate him at the same time. He got me. So I trained with him for Ironman, for him to go. Funny enough, he's trying to ring me this very second on the phone. Just popped up, so I'm silent off the back. But I said his name pop up as I said it. Now, Matty wanted to go to the Ironman World Champion as a para athlete. He come up. He stayed at my place. We trained together for months leading into it. I went as his crew, a part of his crew. Matty won and become world champion. So he was a world champion Ironman. He was a world champion 70.3. He has done, he went to the Paralympics for cross country skiing. So, highly motivated guy. So he got me into doing triathlon and doing the endurance sort of stuff. So I train mainly for the Ironman. I'm doing Busselton in December this year.
Yeah.
I love the Busselton area and the event itself. So I train to that. So obviously around that, I do a couple of swims a week. I do bike riding. I can't run, so I use a wheelchair, a race chair, and I do time on my race chair, both either statically here at home or out on the track. So I mix that up throughout my week. In 2 weeks, I'm one of the ambassadors for the Gold Coast Marathon, and I've got that coming up in 2 weeks as well. So I'm trying to get as much time in the wheelchair as I can, and as much strength into my arms, so plenty of time in the pool, so I can do a PB on that event this year as well. So pretty much just trying to train as much as my body will allow me.
Yeah. And just might be a bit of a weird question, but I have asked this with my disability before, and I talked to a personal trainer last week who lost his sight at the age of 21. With having a disability now, I call it a disability with the injuries you have, did you know anyone when you were young with a disability or, in a wheelchair and that, or back then, that age, knowing anyone to now, what's changed with you with the thoughts and, how you looked at it as a young kid missing it to now? If that makes sense to you?
Had me time to think about that question too.
That's all right. Sorry, I muddled that question up, but I thought I think you understood what I was trying to say.
Yeah, definitely. We back on? All good?
Yep, all good.
Okay. So growing up, I didn't really know anybody with a disability.
Yeah.
It was never really in my space. But as my career went on in defence, I got to know more people who got hurt in service. And there was a couple quite early. A very, very good friend of mine, Peter Jones, ended up as a quadriplegic from a parachute accident, and it left him with very little he could do with his body. So, it sort of started me thinking about, what happens now? The quality of life, how does he express himself, both physically and mentally? And then in the Black Hawk accident on the 12th of June, 96, one of the guys, Jerry Banton, who had survived that, I had watched Jerry around the area in his wheelchair, and then he got a bike as well, so a recumbent bike, and I watched that. So I was sort of starting to see it from a distance, from able-bodied people becoming, disabled with an injury, and what happens to them. How is their quality in life improved by what they bring to the table? So the defence space has just continued to shape that. So it certainly wasn't as a child. It's been through my defence years.
Thanks for that. Sorry, now I lost a little bit of train of thought. Going to one of the big things I think I want to talk to you about, and I don't have a full understanding about it, and I think most people don't. I think they saw the news here and there, and people get busy, then they forget about it, and then it's, the start of the news is the Royal Commission. Can you explain what part you had into it, what the Royal Commission was about? and when it started, when it ended, and we'll go on from there as well. A few more questions.
So another huge question there, bro. So I suppose when the Royal Commission was being spoken about, I didn't agree with it. I didn't see a point for it. I thought that the I suppose what was put on the interim commission was initially set up, and I thought that the powers that Bernadette Boss had were good enough to look into it and get a good result. So I had been asked in the media my opinion, and I said exactly that. However, the decision was made to push ahead with a royal commission. And so initially I was a little bit negative towards it, in the sense of, I thought we had a good enough process that could make it timely for recommendations. So I was invited to go along with the first day of the Royal Commission to represent the RSL, because the national president couldn't be there. So I was briefed up in Brisbane by a media team. I did media that morning. I certainly didn't say that I didn't think the Royal Commission was the smartest idea. I thought we had a better option, but I gave the media, and I sat down there and I listened to the day, and I listened to the outline of everything, and I very quickly got to understand I was wrong, and very wrong. The Royal Commission was the good way to go, and I think that each day that I sat in that room, I grew a little bit more, and I developed a bit more understanding of what it was trying to achieve. So I was asked to attend as the RSL representative on every sitting of the Royal Commission. And I sat on boards that spoke about what happened each day and how we were, learning as an RSL, how we could best help. So we would be best, on the front foot to do that. Out of that, I got asked to sit on one of the committees advising the commissioner, Sir Nick Calvis. And I was extremely honoured to be a part of that. And I continued to learn. And I learn about all the things that happened in the background every day across the commission employees. And I got to see everything that was being said on the stand. So, and seeing that information co-located and how it was best used, it was an amazing thing to be a part of. And the three commissioners were so invested on making sure their recommendations would be accepted by government. Their dealings with everybody was fantastic. Their recommendations were fantastic. It was an absolutely amazing thing to be a part of. And I as a person, I think I grew so much, from that I won't say negative attitude I had. I just thought what was in place was good enough. But I learnt by, sitting back and listening and learning how much better something can be, and how, when you tailor something so well, it has the best outcomes. And I really think that the Royal Commission, delivered fantastic recommendations, and it's now up to government and other organisations to ensure that those recommendations are carried out to best help, the veteran community and serving community.
As I said, like a lot of people would have saw it on the news. It's they'll do a 2-minute at the start, move on to the next point, and people see that but don't have a full understanding. What is, say, one or two of the best points you would say? I know there was a few, but if you had to name two to make this a little bit more simpler today, what are 2 points out of the Royal Commission that you think it's going to be good for coming down the track?
Oh, Jesus, that's a hard question. 2 points. Okay, so let's get away from that and talk about conversation.
Yep.
The Royal Commission, what it did is, over the period that it ran of 3.5 years, sorry, I think I just did something. So over the period of 3.5 years, everybody around Australia was talking about the Royal Commission. They're talking, so veterans who had issues were able to put their hand up and go in and talk to commissioners. So it gave them the feeling of being heard. So it's helping heal those people. It's also getting the commissioners to hear all of that information and then co-locate the information for recommendations. It's making the general public, when they see that grab on the nightly news about the Royal Commission, think about the complexity of service and after service. So it's important to disseminate, those clips of news across people and spark the conversation. Now, even after the Royal Commission is finished, there's a lot of committees, and they were on throughout, analysing stuff that was coming up, that the RSL put together and other organisations put together. So the defence community is now talking how to best look after its community. So the greatest thing to come out of it is the conversation, is that so many people are talking. Now, not everybody is saying the same things, but dialogue is always important, because once you get the dialogue going, you can then look at how best to fix it. You understand that there is a problem, recognizing there is a problem. So I think the most productive thing is that we're having the conversation. We're continuing to have the conversation. We recognize that there is a problem, and now we need to fix it. It needs to be not just, defence. It needs to be the veteran community, government, and the Australian people as a whole, I suppose.
And it's interesting you say that. I'll go back to even when with the war, Afghanistan, and that it's amazing how easy, I suppose, the soldiers, and don't forget all the families, but I'm guilty of it. When a big story happens, like 9/11 happened, Afghanistan or Iraq, when it first goes in, it's the news, and then it kind of shortens down, then it's not as long, and then the story's a bit here, and people say normal civilians will go back to normal day living and kind of forget about it. And I think I was guilty about it. You'll hear it on the news that night, then you forget, then you're doing weekend things with families. And as you said, I think keeping the conversation going, hearing about it, is the most important thing to keep it in everyone's minds.
Yeah. With that though, with any subject, no matter what it is, let's talk. Your friend dies tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
You're going to cry for a couple of days. You'll go to his funeral. You'll talk about him. Everybody will get together and say what a great bloke he is. And you'll visit his family for the first couple of days, and a couple of days after, and you'll ring them. Then after a while, it starts to become every other week, then every other month, and then every other year. People get on with their lives regardless of what pain happened in it, right?
Yeah.
Or what event happened in it. Now, again, that's fine in 9/11 or the Royal Commission or whatever. But when we take time to pause, we've got to take that time to ensure that something comes of it, though. If we're only going to think of it, say every 12 months, and we go back to the analogy of the person dying, you have a drink, you think of your mate, you keep him alive in your mind, you might reach out to his family and say, thinking of you on this day. Right. So there's something productive that happens in that. When you look at it on a large scale event, say the Royal Commission, and that we need to continue. If we're going to think about it, we also got to do something about it. Reach out to somebody who's got a mental health issue. Reach out to your friend who is struggling. It doesn't have to be a big thing, but it just has to be a thing. Recognize it, let it shape what your thoughts are going to be, and act on that. And if enough people are doing that, then the cause and effect's going to work.
Yeah, keep the conversation going, as you said. With the Royal Commission, did it have plans for the next generation of serving military service, and how to help that with suicide and families and that for the next generation? Well
and truly, yeah. No, it was very much focused around defence. I wouldn't say that defence were overly forthcoming in a lot of things, for the Royal Commission, providing information, not being overly helpful with some of the observations that I had. But here's the thing. Defence were doing a lot behind the scenes to ensure that they were looking after their people, and always do. Defence is a fantastic organisation. Never think ill of it. Everybody out there is trying to do the best for their people and look after them and make sure that the workplace is happy and productive, because that's how you win battles. So there's a lot going on, and I honestly believe that Defence thought they were doing all of the right things, and were setting the right programs in place to best look after. But I think that they needed to look and definitely listen to the three commissioners and those recommendations more. I think there should have been a greater collaboration between Defence and the Royal Commission to get those more positive outcomes, or outcomes that were fully armed with information to get better results. I think Defence are certainly doing their bit, to help and provide an opportunity for people to come forward who are struggling, and a better workplace. So yes, positives there, and I think they always will. But just during the Royal Commission, I think there could have been a better collaboration. Sorry, long-winded answer. But...
Yeah. Hopefully I explained this question proper. Okay, so you understand it. With the media, and with the media, police, whatever, when there's something going wrong, they want to report the bad stuff. Not all media, but just the certain part of medias at times. And they talk about lately about special forces and Navy and that. I feel like you had a great time through that time and mateship, and learnt so much. What's good parts of special forces, and what has it done for your life, and the good things in there?
Special operations is amazing.
Yeah.
So as far as what it's done for my life, it provided me, with focus. It provided me an opportunity to work with some fantastic individuals. It provided me to travel, both in peacetime and war. So I did an exchange with the British, and I did lots of trips. So I got to learn about the world in a domestic and a defence position. Special operations, the guys and some girls who are involved in it are generally very highly motivated people. It's a great organisation to work in. You are getting to do, to continue to evolve. One of the greatest things about special operations is that you don't just learn a drill and then you get this drill hammered into you and over and over and over and over. You get to develop that drill as well. Yes, you're taught how the drill is conducted, how to do things, but it's encouraged that if you find a better way, do it. Push those boundaries. Keep making it better and better and better. And that's what we all should be doing with everything. Wherever there's opportunities to make something better, do it. And special operations certainly does that. Strongly encourages it. And
sorry, go
on. Special operations isn't necessarily made up by everybody who likes each other either. Don't think for a second in any workplace where you have a whole bunch of alpha males together, you don't all get along and slap each other's back and, drink beers every day. There's a lot of conflict within it. And yes, to allude back to what you were saying with the media sort of stuff, they're happy to focus on negative stuff. But, it can be a problem, especially if you work with somebody you dislike. But that's all about growth and maturity as well. And as you get further up in the ranks, see the things that you didn't like about working with somebody and ensure that you don't do them to the next person. So it's a great place to work, with great opportunities, with great encouragement to do well. You couldn't find a better place to work. And the pay is extremely bloody good, which enhances it.
How are the numbers at the moment going into the defence area, like the people trying to join and special forces? Have you got an idea of the numbers or how that is with people wanting to join at this stage?
I'm not totally across it, but during the Royal Commission, numbers were extremely bad. Because all you're hearing is negativity on TV. What mum's going to say to their 17-year-old son, I'm happy about you going into defence, with so much negativity on. But I think that the numbers are well and truly picked up now. There's been enough time since the Royal Commission, and things have changed. And I think word of mouth is what really gets people into defence. If you keep saying that it's negative, 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 nobody's going to want to go. But
Exactly.
I think there's enough positivity out there now that people are understanding what a great opportunity the defence space is. For a long-term career to be looked after. I think recruitment is up. I'm hearing that the numbers are good.
Yeah. And I suppose it's, again, after, if you haven't been injured or anything's happened after service, finding a job to go into similar or something like that's important too, because from going to, from a job like being in Special Forces and, having that skill, it's not, it's easier to find something, but it's, to find something you're going to enjoy and take them skills in. How hard is that?
Mate, to be honest, really, really easy.
Yep.
When I'm out and about, I pretty much get offered a job every other day.
Yeah.
Everybody I talk to, and especially, I do a lot of public speaking now, and I have employers come up and say, you ever thought about doing this, or you ever thought about doing that? The transfer of skills when I was a young guy, there was this stupid thought that especially infantry didn't transfer into civilian skills and you'd never get a job.
Yeah.
And then I used to think, how stupid is that? You've got a person with discipline, can make decisions, work independently, step up in other positions, they can mentor, the whole, there's so much in the space. And then as I've gone through my career, special operations guys, you think about what we bring to the table. And this is why I hate so much this broken soldier narrative. Yes, there is a few, but there's the vast majority of people who love their job, bring a lot to the table, the maturity they bring, the leadership. And so special operations, when we're talking to people, we're generally speaking way, way, way above our pay grade. We're briefing, we conduct security for politicians and, in some cases, kings, queens when they're visiting and all that sort of stuff. So our interactions are at large scale. When we're dealing with coalition forces, we're talking to high-ranking people. We're using assets that are worth, billions of dollars, controlling those assets, that are worth billions of dollars. And so there's a large degree of faith that is put in us. So when you bring that back to, like a civilian workplace, in many cases, we're overqualified. We can bring everything to the table for nearly any workspace. A good, healthy soldier, both physically and mentally, can achieve anything.
Yeah. And I think that's great to hear because, as you said, sometimes parents can get told this old thing, if you get in there, you only have to stay in, there's nothing out there when you're finished. And hearing it from you, like the skills you can get in there. And I was told once, while you're in there, you can learn how to drive trucks, learn how to do anything. And them skills when you come out, just have, truck licenses or whatever licenses you have, is only going to help your job, future as soon as you get out anyhow.
Yep. We have so much to offer as soldiers. People have got to understand how much they have to offer.
Talking about you doing a lot of, conference talks and that, where did that skill come from? And do you enjoy it? And what are you actually doing now? Are you doing any kind of circuit work for a certain branch or organisation?
So initially, a lot of people just wanted to hear my story. So they wanted to hear the story, my career, about getting hurt, about getting over it, and the Invictus space. And so, the feel-good story of Pete Rudland sort of thing, from negativity to positivity type thing.
Yeah.
I started to learn that there was so much more to my story to tell, and how to adapt that to what the company's messaging was who wanted me to talk, and I think since I've understood that adapting to the message properly, it's been far more popular. So the different organisations that I talk to, so RSL, they're always going to have me out and about talking to different RSLs, different organisations, and so on. What comes from that is people who sit in on that go, "Hey Pete, could you do this?" then like, Pain Australia, again, when I'm talking about that, you talk on their behalf, somebody else grabs you. And it's had that flow on effect with just about everything. So I haven't needed to have a manager or, I'm not out there to do it full time.
Yeah.
I'm doing it because of the organisations that I'm attached to. If I can value add to them, I certainly want to in any way, shape, or form. So from there, I've just been picked up from the Gallipoli Research Foundation to be their sports ambassador. So I'm super excited about that. And as recent as on the weekend, they got me to speak to Bupa. And I spoke about my rehabilitation on that one. So with each one of the talks that I've given, I'm evolving my story to better suit their messaging and to get all of those platforms I'm across somewhere involved in each one of those talks I do to highlight the different organisations that I represent and what great jobs that they are doing for the defence community or the community as a whole. I've expanded a little bit late. It was quite weird. I got asked to do a talk for a large air conditioning company in Sydney, where they flew me down, and their messaging was teamwork and having that loyalty, organisational loyalty. And I spoke to them, and I thoroughly loved it. I really, really loved it. And I mean, it was such a gig. Flying to Sydney, they picked me up, took me down, did the talk, jumped on the next plane, came home. And I really enjoyed the people who were there. I got the company messaging out, which is what they really loved. And I got to tell a group of people who have no understanding of the defence space about defence and the quality of the defence space and the organisations that are around it and do it. So I'm enjoying speaking to that corporate side of things now as well, where I didn't speak to them before. It was very task orientated, I suppose, with the RSL speeches and Invictus speeches and all that sort of stuff. So now I got to talk about those other skills and how they can be best utilised in the workplace, or people, just civilians as a whole, utilising basic skills to enhance their workspace.
No, that's great. And hopefully, like we said, and coming to the last few questions, we discussed that about talking about your accident and that, and hopefully you felt, the direction we have gone on today, you have enjoyed just talking about these subjects. Just one more thing before moving on to the last few questions. Doing these talks, how were you at school getting up and talking? Did you see yourself a person who could get up and talk to, a room or large amount of people?
Definitely not. I've always been a talker. There's no doubt about that. But in school, I suppose I had my say where I thought it was warranted.
Yeah.
But it was more, I suppose, when I got into the defence space. So when I think I was in IETs, one of the corporals would grab a digger and say, stand up, and give them a stupid topic to talk about for 2 minutes. They had to get up and talk about, the cocking handle on an M16, for example, and the dude would stand there and mumble and, he'd talk for 20 seconds, get bored or whatever. And the first topic I got was a shit sandwich.
Oh.
And I had to talk about a shit sandwich.
Okay.
So, I went on this whole random thing about, it depends on the type of bread. You could do white bread, you could do, brown bread, you could do multigrain, put it on a roll, and there's different types. There's yellow, there's green, there's black, blah, blah. And I realized that I always had that ability to just be able to randomly talk. And I sort of enjoyed that to an extent. And I thought it sort of it was part of my personality. Maybe I talk way too much sometimes, but it just sort of, I don't know, it just evolved into being able to talk in front of people. I used to get a little bit nervous, but I suppose as things have gone on, I've become far more comfortable, and I enjoy being in front of people. I enjoy telling my story. I enjoy the reception. Just to go back to the Bupa thing the other day, after I got off the stage and I come down, I was at my table, and all these ladies kept coming over to talk to me, and they were standing there and they were looking like really weird, and it was like awkward. And then one lady said, "Can I cuddle you?" And I said, yes, definitely. So I gave her a cuddle. And she goes, I just loved hearing about your injury and the way you approached it and all that sort of stuff. And, I'm a nurse and, blah, blah, blah. And then the next one, can I cuddle you? And my partner's sitting, in the chair next to me. And I'm thinking, oh, this is going to go really well. Not that my partner's a jealous type of girl or anything.
Yeah.
Like a whole bunch of ladies asking me for cuddles.
Yeah.
So I like that impact that I have, and if I can make people feel good about themselves, and enjoy what they're doing, that's what I really like. So I suppose it's been an evolution through to not being comfortable to being comfortable, and being so comfortable that I can make people want to cuddle me.
Yeah, I know. I think it's great, but I'll say one thing, and before my last couple of questions is, like you said, even that your person getting up and just asking you to do a talk, like you said, on a shit sandwich, it's just other points I don't see people understand, little developments you don't hear about in the army, how they develop you, if you're a man or woman, just that little developments to help you grow as a person. And we don't hear that, but it's just them little ones here and there, little lessons. Helps you develop more and more as you grow while you're serving, and then after you're doing things after you, in the civilian world.
Yeah.
Last couple of questions, and again, I hope you enjoyed it, and we got through all the points we have wanted to talk about. Not weird questions, but this is why I do ask that at the end. If you have enjoyed it, another friend, I don't mind if they're in the military, someone who could you say, if you enjoy my style and what we talked about today, that you would probably refer them or say, hey, I think you should go and talk to Alan, or you could set us up someone to talk to?
Matty Brumby.
Yeah.
Yep. 2-time world champion triathlon and Olympian, Paralympian, Winter Olympics.
Okay, we might talk, if you don't mind, we might talk about that and see if he can come on. I'd be really would respect that and look forward to talking to him. Someone totally famous, someone in this world that, if you do like famous people, I don't care what they're doing, sport, they write books, they're in the Olympics, someone you would like to hear on my show. If you know they were going to come in, you would tune in while you're walking or doing a workout, that you would like to listen to on the podcast.
That's not an easy one. You know what? I would say Brendan Nelson.
Okay.
The reason I say Brendan is he is extremely intelligent individual. Everything he says is a pleasure to listen to. He's had great appointments, and he is a great Australian who just loves to do things well.
Yeah. Okay. Like we said, is the numbers you feel like might be picking up to soldiers, people joining the Defence Force. If there was hopefully there was a dad or mum out there listening, and they wanted to hear why their son or daughter should join the Defence Force, and they were listening to you, what would you say to them about what is the good thing for their son and daughter to join the Defence Force?
Big question. The Defence Force is full of like-minded people. They're, if you're, into PT and you love your training, you will find a friend. If you are into your computers, you will find a friend. You are a part of an organization that has so much to offer. It has job security. It has a very strong set of rules and ethics. It is an organization that has loyalty. I do not believe there are any systemic problems in defence. I believe there are cultural ones, right? And what I mean by that is, like if you're in a workplace and, someone's not getting along, that's because there's a dickhead, someone in there, and they can be moved on and the position can be fixed and someone can be in there. So I don't think there's anything that is definitely wrong with the system as such. I think that you would be saying to your son or daughter, you're a part of something that wants excellence in everything that you do. And it's an organization will try to adapt that to ensure that, you know, you have opportunity. Very few businesses around the world can provide somebody with what defence can. Housing loans, houses, it's security, it's everything. It's a fantastic job. It is an absolutely fantastic job with the highest standard of people across it. Don't get me wrong, there's also some low standards as well, but everybody's got their place.
I think them last words, what you said, it's a fantastic place and a fantastic job, is really, strong words and show, the best way to explain it, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I love my time in uniform.
Mate, is there anything else you would like people to remember, or sites to go to, or anything you would like to finish at the end? And I hope you really enjoyed everything we went through.
I have. There was one thing I put in my notes today.
Yep.
That I was hoping that we would cover.
Yep.
And that's just this Labor government's last budget with going after the veteran community with the $5,000 limits.
Yeah, you go for it.
Right, $5,000 limit. And I want your listeners to be aware how much that can impact.
Yeah.
Now, if you've just got a sore foot and you've got out of defence, and let's say you broke your lower leg and you've got a single injury and you go to physio a couple of times a week or whatever, blah blah blah. Those guys and girls, they're fine. But if you've got a person like, say, myself, who has broke most of the major bones, I had a frontal lobe bleed. I've had issues to my liver and my kidney and everything like that from the crash. I live alone, or I have my kids 50% of the time, but I'm no longer married. So I need some of the family services to do stuff, and that all comes out of that $5,000. So, the impact on battle CAS and severe injury people is like, it's almost catastrophic. $5,000 is not enough money to cover what I have to go. EP, physios, house cleaning, blah blah blah. So I think that there needs to be some pushback towards government to say what you're doing is wrong. There's there's better ways that defence could do, not defence, but government could do this. But to put a 5,000 cap across everybody is wrong, and it really shows that the Labor government haven't got a clue.
Yeah,
this is one of the biggest brain dead things that I think I've ever heard, and zero thought's gone into it.
Yeah.
Just the impact is massive, and like myself, I'll always make do. But there's plenty of people out there who can't. I just used myself as an example, and I will make do. But I do worry about people that are already struggling, and those people who are, so have mental health issues. This is going to make it really bad. I think this is going to really impact. We've just had a Royal Commission for mental health for suicide, and I think this is going to cause greater mental health issues and greatly impact on many veterans.
And last thing I say, that it's just, again, chucking a blanket over everyone and treating everyone the same without sitting down with yourself and other people who have a understanding about it, and just thinking we can fix the problem by, chucking one blanket over and getting rid of the whole thing with just not thinking about it again.
Yeah, bloody oath.
Mate, I, again, thank you for coming on. I know Jacob does. And last thing I'll say, again, I hope you enjoyed it. And hopefully we might even have you back on and look at your friend even coming on. We might see if you can set that up. I would really enjoy that.
I can set that up with no drama at all. And I'll probably speak to him in the next 10 minutes because he tried to ring while we were talking.
Okay, mate, you have a great day, and we'll sign out and talk to you. All right, mate? How was that, buddy? Did you pleased how I went through everything, and did you enjoy that?
Yeah. No, mate, I did. I didn't waffle on, did I?
No, you were good. I just hope my questions were good. Like I said, I'm, just coming new at this, so I know you'll probably talk to different podcasts and interviews before, so I hope you think I'm going okay for just being new at this anyhow.
No, you did well. It was good. I enjoyed it, mate.
Okay, mate, I'll let you know when it's all out, and we'll catch up and we'll put any information in that. And again, mate, I would, like I said, I'm building this up. I would really enjoy talking to your friend if we can set that up soon or down the track.
Considered it set up. It's no drama at all.
Okay, mate. Thank you again. You look after yourself, and the weekend's coming up. You look after yourself. Okay.
Take care, guys.
And Jacob says bye bye too.
I can see him and hear him.
Okay. There you go. That makes sense.
Later, guys. Have a great day.
Bye bye.
Alan Lewis Raw Conversation, where every voice has a story.